Well, folks, it's my pleasure to be here with Eric Boyd. Eric, thank you for taking some time.
Of course, glad to be here.
Just the story of how this started was I hadn't met you before, but in talking to a number of execs, I met Scott Guthrie, and we were doing some incredible work in security and cloud, and we were starting to think about AI. And I said, you've got to talk to Eric Boyd. So we had our first conversation not that long ago.
Yeah.
Just a few weeks ago. Of course, we're going to talk about some exciting things we're doing. But I thought maybe first you could tell us a little bit of your background, how long you've been at Microsoft, and how long you've been working in the field of AI.
Yeah, sure. So I've been at Microsoft probably 13 years now. I joined initially on the Bing Ads team, and of course, you can't do a search engine and advertising without AI. But the remarkable growth of AI over the last 10, 12, 13 years has just kind of been incredible. So my role evolved into the role I have now of the AI platform team. And so just really watching the growth of this space, the way that, compute and data and model sizes have all just exploded to create these incredible applications that we're now seeing.
And for all of us, because I, as a computer science student, did AI, graduated in 91, and then it kind of got forgotten. There was some self-driving car work raised later on.
It was the worst.
Why is there a renaissance of it now? What's changed in the last, recent, but also in the last 2, 3, 4 years?
No, it's really interesting. I mean, yeah, I also took AI in college many years ago, and it was the worst class because none of this stuff worked. It was a bunch of tricks and heuristics. And so really, it's just been that explosion of now we have massive amounts of compute available in a way that we didn't before. We have massive amounts of data available in the way we didn't before. We're much better at managing these large amounts of data. And then we've really been able to explode the model sizes. That combined with a lot of the architectural changes. So, deep learning really came about, in the early 2010s timeframe. And then we've just sort of seen the expansion of that with different model architectures culminating in the transformer model architecture. So it's just been all of those changes of the architecture, the data, and the compute, and putting all of that together that's really enabled this.
Well, your shirt says AI platform, so I want to ask you a little bit of your vision. You've had a front row seat to see AI from Bing to now being transformed. What's Microsoft's vision for AI that you've now started to unveil to the world?
Yeah, I mean, so Microsoft as a company, we have this broad mission of we want to empower every person and organization on the planet to go and achieve more. The vision for AI is to use AI to go and do exactly that. So we see this explosion in capability of AI that, particularly with these large language models, but across the full spectrum, including the way vision works, including speech, and how all of this fits together. And so we really are looking for the ways that companies are trying to use this to help make people more productive. And we see just so many opportunities to make people more productive. We started with Copilot for GitHub, and so making developers more productive. And we've just seen tremendous gains in that. And now we just see so many adjacencies where lots of people now are going to be able to effectively have a conversation with an intelligent Copilot that will help make them more productive at the work that they're doing. And you can see that we've rolled that out across the spectrum of products that we have.
Well, let's go right there, because since the big OpenAI ChatGPT Bing announcement with where Satya and Yusuf and many of you kind of talked about, there's been a lot of activity with Microsoft. Summarize some of the key announcements you guys have made in the last few months.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 months have just kind of been crazy in terms of how much it's moved. I mean, obviously we announced Bing and the integration of Bing Chat. And so that was, a fundamental step forward in terms of rolling this capability out broadly. Then we've announced it in Microsoft 365. And so now you have your Copilot for Office that really builds on the Microsoft Graph and, your relationships and your emails and your calendar and all of the documents and things you have there to be able to have a conversation about all of that capability. Copilot came out with the new Copilot X, which enhances the way that they'd been using, it used to be you could type a comment and it would finish, some code for you. Now it provides a conversational interface where you can have a much richer conversation with someone to help you write your code. Just a couple days ago, we had the Security Copilot release.
Yes, I saw.
Now we can bring the same set of capabilities into the security fold. And Nuance has got work they're doing with, making your doctor experience different. And LinkedIn is going to change the way that, you author your ways you connect for job seekers. Really just every business across Microsoft in the last 2 months has come out with something that says, hey, here's the way that we're adopting this technology.
It's been remarkable to watch. And I was talking to Charlie Bell earlier about Security Copilot and Satya also earlier about my M365 Copilot. So how many Copilots are there?
I mean,
dozens, I'm sure, already, right? Because almost all your products are going to have that brand, I imagine.
well, that's sort of the vision, right? Is to sort of think about the way that we can help make someone become more productive. And so the Copilot is the way, I have someone who's working with me, looking over my shoulder and helping me do things. And it's super powerful, right? Like my 12-year-old son was trying to write the game Snake, this stupid little game where the snake eats an apple and it gets longer. Being able to have a conversation with a smart developer as you write that game and just, in 30 minutes we had working code in a language that I don't even really know, and I don't write code for a living anymore. So it was really just incredibly powerful.
I think that Copilot in GitHub is just to make us, as developers and engineers ourselves, to have that first suggestive code that can help you. And I told my 13-year-old was telling me the same thing. Oh, Dad, I use ChatGPT. I said, well, if it's going to give you an essay, use that as a first draft.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to copy it, but that's like someone summarizing the entire library for you.
Yeah, it makes you more productive. And, the helping you create something like text and things like that, I find super helpful. People regularly are using these things to, I've got some amount of document or some ideas, and can you put this in a structured form for me and give me more content on it? The primary use cases really we're seeing with this are, we see content creation, those types of use cases. We see summarization. So here's a long document. Please explain to me sort of the relevant key pieces. Teams rolled out now where we can summarize the content of a meeting for you, which is just super powerful. And then to some of these, search scenarios, being able to sort of say, hey, here's a whole pile of documents. Help me understand and have a conversation about what's in this document. And so those, I think, the main things we're seeing customers.
Well, I want to shift a little bit from consumer to enterprise. That's the world I live in.
Of course.
We are a leading data security and data management platform specialized in a lot of the use cases of back with the best technology in the space. So when I first met you, Eric, I was talking about the possibilities, but we went to work with some of the early forms of, tools that you gave us to go and look at OpenAI applied to what we could do with our stuff. We went to work, in just a few weeks, one of our key people, Greg Statton, built a prototype, which we've showed you. I'd like to get back to the second. But I want to start with this term that I was talking to your CEO today, Satya Nadella, and he used this term, I was describing what we're doing, he used this term RAG.
Yes.
Okay. What is RAG, and how does it apply to a little bit of what we are doing?
Yeah, so this is what when we go and talk to enterprise customers, what they all say to us is, man, ChatGPT, these models are so powerful and so amazing, but I needed to be able to talk and reason about my data. And so RAG is this new term that's come out. It stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And so the notion is, we have a demo set up where we say, look, let's take all of the healthcare documentation that you've got for an organization. And some of these healthcare documents, the plans and all of it, they're like hundreds of pages explaining what's covered and what's not covered. And so nobody wants to pour through that. You just want to be able to ask, okay, does my plan cover annual vision exams? Which plan covers annual vision exams? And so what you do with this retrieval augmented generation pattern is you index all of these documents in a search engine, and then you sort of pull the relevant pieces out and sort of feed that to ChatGPT and say, hey, here are the documents I think you're going to need to know about to answer this question of, does my plan cover eye exams? And then ChatGPT can read over it and then can even cite it, and it can say, hey, yes, your plan does cover eye exams, and this is the document that covers that answer, and specifically here's where in that document that covers that answer. And so that's the pattern that we really pioneered with Bing. And so when you go to Bing Chat and you do a search for something, if I want to know about an event that happened yesterday, and I sort of search for those events, it will go and it'll do a search for that and then feed the results of that search query into the Bing chatbot that then can go and answer directly on top of that. So that pattern of retrieve some data, feed it into the the prompt for the chat, and then have it respond on it, we call that RAG, is super powerful for how customers are going to use this going forward.
Well, that's kind of where we come in. So the power and beauty of what Cohesity built was our founder built the file system at Google. And the differentiation in our platform is a lot of that file system is built to be search ready. Indexes cached, elastic capability. And that's one of the differentiators why we win today in the platform, because of that file system and the beauty of this. So this was sort of a technology that was waiting for OpenAI to come. It was almost like the right hammer came in to hit our nail.
Yeah.
So we prototype with the stuff you showed us to just a few weeks. We're not yet ready to fully productize it and even haven't figured out how we'll commercialize it, but we showed you some of the early prototype form. And it's exactly the approach to RAG. The indices, And now in the early prototypes, we showed you those forms. I know your Ali and your team has been very helpful to us too. What are your thoughts of how that type of use case, which is very enterprise focused, and the problem that it solves is the ability for someone to be able to search a large backup file, which might be tens or hundreds of petabytes.
Yeah.
And the example I was using describing to people, it's like, remember that 1980s tape that we had of Michael Jackson? If you wanted to find the song, it was impossible to find it.
Right.
Because you were rewinding fast forward on tape. But now with a lot of that index infrastructure with AI, you're able to do that really fast. Do you see use cases like this being very appealing to how OpenAI could be applied to technology like ours?
So you're definitely talking about an older enterprise audience with your cassette tape reference, because most,
Some might remember.
my kids have no idea even what a CD is. But yeah, no, I totally, that totally resonates of like, you need to sort of figure out how do we find the right data. I think that's going to be tremendously powerful. The number of use cases that, we can see that sort of have that type of pattern. We've seen companies do it for customer support use cases where, they have tremendous amount of support documentation and they want to keep their documentation up to date, and they want their customers to be able to get the latest documentation, so their support agents to know the latest changes in the product, to be able to sort of have that documentation on demand in a specific question. Hey, the customer is asking about this, how do I do it? And really get an answer back. And so if you think about, yes, all the amount of documents that companies have and all the places where they're really not tapped into, being able to have this pattern of I can search, which we've had for a while, but now not only can I search, but I can search and reason over the specific question that I'm trying to get an answer to. And instead of having to sort of pour through the search results, it literally just tells me, no, this is the answer. This is what you need to go do.
And we found when we talk to customers, motivating, because there's always, when you talk about AI, there's privacy concerns, and also a little bit of AI washing concerns. When you start with that search example as, listen, this is how you think about search. But now think about it as AI-powered search. The answers are so more apparent. People calm down. And they don't. And of course, we're operating your data. It's on your data. It's in the enterprise. It's not scanning the internet. It's not giving you the meaning of life.
That's right.
So these are a lot more palatable to make people less so concerned in the enterprise about these greater questions that the New York Times or other people might be talking about, the downsides of AI.
Totally agree. And I think the search is a great pattern too, because it can respect, permissions, what documents am I allowed to see? Like search can, have that in it. If you train a model on all these documents, if we trained a model on all the email at Microsoft, all of Satya's emails are in there. And so if I were to go and ask a question about what did Satya email, someone about, it'd probably tell me. And so being able to have that search grounding for it, it's only going to have the data that really I have permission to see. And so nothing can leak. There's no ability for anything to sort of break out of the walls. And so yeah, I think for the enterprise scenarios, it helps people feel a lot more comfortable.
Well, we want our customers to be able to be empowered on scenarios where, let's say they're doing an investigation of something and it mirrored something that happened 30 years ago, but I wasn't there at the time. It was maybe 5 managers before me, whatever have you. Being able to go, and even if it's not a, fast query that comes back in milliseconds, Snowflake or Synapse or whatever have you, I'll come back the next day for a fully formed answer that's a little essay of what I should do to handle this situation that mirrors what happens before. Any types of scenarios, and given the fact we're offering offerings at hundreds of petabytes, exabytes worth of backup data, that gives people an enormous amount of insights for many of these legal or other scenarios.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting use case. I think there are a lot of companies that, again, it's this massive amount of data that companies have that they want to figure out how they can do something useful with. And so search has been sort of the first step, and now you can add sort of the power to have really an intelligent reasoning engine on top of this search data that we can sort of go and pull up. I think the combination is super powerful.
Well, speaking of combination, we're looking forward to this relationship where what we're going to do is be the first in our space, data protection, data security, to use open and AI technologies to unleash insights. We're going to insights on our data and then build from there. So I'm really appreciative of your team's help in us doing that. We want to be one of your leading ISVs that build on your platform. And showcase the power of this technology for this use case. And Ali, you and the rest of the team have been enormously helpful in just a few short weeks of working with you. So thank you for all of it.
No, of course, sounds great. And definitely looking forward to a really productive partnership across the teams.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, thanks. Bye.